Another reason we feel stuck is because we're avoiding. It looks like we're being responsible. We're taking care of the kids, we're going to work, we're showing up for our family, and we're doing what needs to be done. And from the outside, it looks like we're handling this grief magnificently. You look like you're handling it. People might even tell you, girl, you're so strong. I can't even believe you. I can't believe all the stuff that you're getting done. I'm so happy for you. You're doing so well. I don't know how you're doing on the inside, but girl, on the outside, you look fabulous. And that's what we hear. And our ego actually takes a little bit of a break. They're like, they're right. I am doing this thing. And parts of you hear that. And you know that it's true. But the other parts of you do this other thing that I see all the time. And you start telling me how exhausted you are. Not just tired, you're exhausted. You're absolutely drained. Why? Because you're carrying something that was never meant to be carried. You're carrying this grief that was never meant to be carried for a lifetime. And on top of everything else, you don't actually put it down. You're carrying the grief while you're taking care of the kids and making the dinner and going to the grocery store and doing all the things. You're never actually putting the grief down and taking a moment, taking a break, taking a look at it. You just keep moving. Why? Because avoiding seems like the thing you're supposed to be doing. Because as long as I can stay in front of this grief, the more I can move it. And I was talking about the story room early. The story room is where people come into and they tell their story. What's your grief story? When I go on live on TikTok, people come into the room and they want me to know their story. They want me to know their story. And so they'll say things like, I lost my mom 3 months ago. 6 months ago, I lost my mom and dad 20 days apart. I lost my son 2 years ago. They want me to know the story. The number one thing that grievers want me to know is their story. And they put it right in there. We've never even met. They don't come in and say hi, which I'm fine with. They tell me the part of their story that's important. Here was the other thing about the story. We can say I lost my mom. We can say I lost my dad, and it's been really hard. My heart is absolutely broken. But what's under that? What's under that you haven't told? They don't even realize how much they're holding on to the grief. Because they've been doing this for so long, they don't even realize how long they're holding on to it. Under the story is the fact that they're not sleeping, they're not eating, that all they do is cry, that they hate the world, that they don't want to be here anymore. That's what's under the story. But they're not dealing with the grief. They just want someone to hear their story. And that's why I created the story room. So we can come in and we can tell the ugly part. They haven't been dealing with their grief. And these, my friends, carrying the grief and not telling the story are not the same thing. Look, when you're avoiding, you're not running from the grief. When you're avoiding, you're doing it out in the open where everybody can see it. Sometimes it looks like you're doing everything right, except sitting in that pain, except sitting in that grief pain. What's the one thing you're doing every day that is keeping you from sitting in the grief? Why are you so busy? Why are you pretending to be strong? Busy doesn't mean healing. It means busy, period. Okay, number 3, you're carrying the grief. Another reason you feel stuck is because grief is not just something you think about. You do carry it, but it was never meant to be carried forever. You're carrying it in your chest. You're carrying it in your stomach. You carry it in your everyday energy. You actually are carrying it in your sleep. You can't stop thinking about it over and over and over again. You feel really heavy. The grief feels really heavy. That exhaustion doesn't go away. The reason it doesn't go away is because most of you have your shoulders up like this and you're not breathing. That's why you're carrying it in your chest and in your stomach and you're just walking around, waiting for a moment to explode it, to dump it on somebody. The heavier you feel, the more exhaustion you feel. And that exhaustion doesn't go away. That tightness that you feel, it shows up everywhere. And it's not random. It's telling me that your grief hasn't been processed. If someone tells me that they're exhausted, I know for a fact they're not processing the grief. Because your body holds what your mind tries to control. Your body holds what your mind is trying to control. Grief is not an intellectual experience. Grief is an emotional experience that takes place in our heart. And if you never give your body a chance to feel it, it will stay right where it is. And the longer it stays right where it is, you come upon that door where you feel stuck. And people don't realize this until they slow down, or until they start talking about it, or until they start sharing it. Until you sit in the space without distraction, you are not going to get any chance to move this. And suddenly you feel everything all at once because you never sat in the space. You've never sat in the space to actually move this. And once you feel everything, it becomes overwhelming. And you start reacting to it. Not because it's too much, but because you've carried it for too long. You've waited too long. You've not known how to move this thing.